Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Akin Badiakifewa here. I'm excited to be one of the instructors and directors at Skillweed Academy. I'm excited to present to you today. Today is going to be an exciting one, and I think we would learn a quite a number of good things here in the next few minutes. And I'm ready to ride with you. So before we get started, some key fundamentals just to make sure we are all aware of this in general. AI has taken over the world. We can agree on this. So I'm going to focus from an angle of those key areas around security and privacy. So we're going to go into mapping appropriate controls for AI security and privacy as a whole. So in general, the security element and privacy is crucial for ensuring the systems are trusted and safe. Every organization in the world today wants the safety, the confidentiality, the preservation of the information or sensitive data of their client base at all times. So if security is not there, the angle is going to be a lot of problems awaiting the organization. So it's very critical and important as a whole. What is the AI ecosystem landscape at the moment in general? Of course, most of them would have secure cloud servers where most of these models are hosted. There should be a form of encryption of the data in general, access control, who has access to the different model, the authorization mechanism for every one of this model. How are those models tested? Are we sure we have robust fairness and less bias in terms of the deployment of this model in general? What are the key privacy requirements in general? What are the laws prevalent in each of those locations as a whole? And also, ultimately, do we have audit trail for every one of those model that we are working on as a whole? What are those challenges right now that we've seen out there? Of course, we can all agree data breaches is a big one, unauthorized access in general, the bias in general in terms of the model. Then, of course, the big one, regulatory compliance, is always a big one for us too as a whole. In general, some key security best practices for those model. Of course, we have the data collection where we implement access control, encryption for sensitive data, and anonymizing those data where possible. Then data labeling, how do we ensure we have a best practice securing the labeling platform in general? And in general, also, how do we train labelers on data handling process? We should have policies, procedures, guidelines in general. The model development also. What is the key environment in which we secure this model? Is it secure? Are we implementing the best practice for coding in general? Is it tested? Is it properly documented as a whole? Then we have the model training. What is the process in training the models as a whole? Do we monitor for bias and overfitting in general? Then model deployment. What is the process around deploying the model in a secure and effective way through authentication, authorization, and continuous monitoring of that model as a whole. Then, of course, the model maintenance, a continuous monitoring of the performance, getting the feedback loop from the stakeholders in general, and retraining the model as needed as a whole also. Privacy by design principles, always remember also, we have to always think about the collecting and only making sure we just collect relevant information. Then the setting transparency, making sure that the users have that transparency in terms of what they can decide to show in general. Then, of course, consent prompt must be always there to make sure that our users opt in and their privacy rights are also preserved at all times. Some case studies, just in general, some of the DDoS attack that happened with Equifax. I think that's a big case we can all agree on in 2016. There was also Equifax data breach in 2017 that exposed over 140 million records of their customers. So those are some general use cases out there, that we can think about in terms of potential breaches. And these breaches can be across the board on different models out there, cloud, LLM models, and even your infrastructure as a whole. So it's very important to implement those key controls as a whole. Some global landscape in terms of regulation in the world. Europe, of course, we can agree GDPR is a big one, making sure appropriate ethics and guidelines are implemented in general for European member states. United States also has federal regulation and state regulations around privacy and security, and of course, recently we can the NIST framework for I artificial intelligence also came out too. In China, there are some regulation push out there too, as a whole, and every region is pushing some form of regulation to just make sure they are on top of the guide rails for those models in general. Some general best practices: secure code review to make sure that every one of those elements are properly reviewed, to do constant vulnerability scan, continuous penetration testing to just ethically test those environment, threat modeling in general to make sure that we have best practices in the modeling itself. Then a continuous risk assessment is something that is always going to be profound also at all times. Then some emerging innovation, we can agree there are a lot of innovation going on right now. It's really amazing to keep up because there's constantly something going on all the time. So, some general things: federated learning diagram in general. This shows us multiple devices collaborating in a federated learning system without necessarily the raw data. We have the homomorphic encryption also, which really allows competition in the encrypted data in general. Then we have the blockchain network or technology also that can be adopted in general. And it enables decentralized and distributed ledgers in general also. So these are some innovation out there that people are exploring and using as safeguards and best practices to keep evolving. And of course, there are so many other new innovation out there. Hope this was helpful, and thank you so much for being part of this community. And I look forward to seeing you in the next program. Take care. Bye.